Taghmon, officially founded in 597 AD, is a village full of history. It is evident as soon as you enter the parish, with buildings and monuments representative of generations far in the past to those presently living here. Many call it old-fashioned, but I call it cultured. The most notable of Taghmon's monuments, I would say, is the castle, of course. Anyone who has ever driven through Taghmon knows it well by this landmark. Tagmon's castle dates all the way back to the early 15th century. Its construction was accredited to the Hoare family, but historian Billy Colfer is of the belief Sir Gilbert Talbot oversaw its erection. The Talbot family were the lords of the castle, overseeing the village. As Taghmon was involved in much conflict and turmoil at this time in history, the castle was a necessary structure to maintain order. The castle is described as being well kept up until the mid-17th century. However, in a document from 1684, it is said to have been in ruins, much the state we see it in currently. The castle is very well made, evident from the fact it still stands today despite its age. Upon its construction it was fitted out with machicolations, murder holes, and a small portcullis at the entrance. It was clearly made with defence in mind, especially interesting as the area was consistently being accosted by Irish clans. The building is 4 stories tall, and much of its facilities can still be observed to this day, such as a destroyed fireplace and a toilet. The castle is certainly impressive, and a very notable symbol of Taghmon. The castle is sadly in desperate need of repair, with visible holes and cracks in the stonework, both superficial and structural. Just across from the castle is another monument to our heritage and culture, St. Mun's Church, one of 2 remaining churches left in Taghmon, with a further 2 churches long lost to the ages around the village. St. Mun's Church is a part of the Church of Ireland, built in 1891, speculated to have been built on the site of a medieval parish church, just north of the original St. Mun's Church built long ago in the village. The church ground displays a medieval high cross and a well-kept graveyard, with some headstones dating back to the late 1700s. The high cross is certainly important to Taghmon's identity, being associated with the local GAA club. Some believe the water that gathers around the cross can cure warts on the skin when dabbed on the affected area. St. Mun's graveyard, known locally as the Munnachon, is an old graveyard to the rear of the church and the bakery. The graveyard can be accessed via an old stile and is situated on higher ground than the laneway leading up to it. The graveyard contains headstones from the 18th and 19th century, as well as something I found very interesting. There are some old grave markers scattered around the site that may date as far back as the 10 and 1100s. The graveyard may be the site of the original church of St. Mun, however, no evidence survives to this day. The laneway leading to the graveyard, along with the graveyard itself, has been victim to vandalism and dumping over the years. Despite this, it is still an interesting site, one I personally visit from time to time. Upon going down the street from the castle and St. Mun's Church, you'll come across a monument to the execution of the men James Parrell, John Crane, and Patrick Hogan. The men were executed 100 years ago, on the 13th of March 1923, in the Wexford jail for the sin of rebellion. The men, aged 25, 18, and 20 respectively, marched to their deaths bravely. Hogan was the only one to die instantly to the firing squad. Parrell yelled, "Shoot us again," and his demand was granted by a Free State officer, shooting Parrell and Crane with his revolver to finish them off. Micheál Martin himself attended the centenary commemoration. Letters from the men were read out to onlookers at the event. The monument has recently been cleaned up and renovated. A new walkway was installed, as well as benches, gravel, and plenty of flowers and plants. Going up the main street, just beside the local chipper, is a gateway leading to St. Mary's graveyard, closed to the public. There was once a church on this site, St. Mary's. However, very little remains of the structure, and the area has sadly been neglected. Much like the Munachon, the grave markers found here date to the 18th and 19th century, as well as some markers and stonework dating back to the Middle Ages. There is much work to be done with the site. The original building is rubble, and even the surrounding stone walls have begun to fall apart. The area may be closed to the locals, but still holds importance in our heritage. Across from the local primary school is St. Fintan's Church, built between 1869 and 1871 to replace another, apparently plainer looking chapel. The church has amazing stained glass windows and a mosaic within, and the architecture is certainly striking. When looking at the church from the steps ascending to the entrance, you can see a house to the right for the local priest, and a small graveyard to the left for deceased members of the clergy of the past. The church is often overfilled come religious holidays, communions, confirmations, weddings and funerals. It holds great importance to the locals. Following the road out of the village from the church is a laneway leading to Brown's Castle. The area is a popular walking trail, surrounded by beautiful woodlands following a stream. Along the walkway, two notable monuments connected to St. Mun can be found, St. Mun's Well and St. Mun's Bed, both holding an importance in local folklore. The well is surrounded by stone walls installed by the locals and is well kept. People often leave offerings by the well. Water from the well is reputed to cure a variety of ailments, much like St. Mun's Bed. When one lays on the etched cross on the flat, sloped rock, it is said to cure back pain. The bed is believed to have been used by St. Mun himself in the summer months when the weather was fine, hence its alleged spiritual powers. The trail in Brown's Castle is gorgeous, deserving of its popularity. The trail has been improved over the years, now being gravelled with some safety rails installed, signage and benches, as well as the fallen trees being removed from the trail. Walking through the woods you'll find what remains of the old wool mill, nearly reminiscent of the castle itself. The wool mill closed down in 1912 and is now covered in vines and moss, with few walls left standing. Taghmon is a village with far more history than one could imagine at a glance, rich in heritage. In this video I've no more than scratched the surface of the sights and stories I've mentioned, never mind the myriad I haven't even touched on. Taghmon holds a place in my heart for more reasons than simply it was where I was raised. It is important to Irish history, not just for the locals, but for the country as a whole. It must be preserved and worked upon. There are very few places like it left in the world.